And I wanted to ask you, does this have a chance to go down as one of the all-timers?
Yes, because I love the over. I
Okay.
hate to bury the lead.
That's fine.
I don't know how. We're not going to go hardcore football breakdown early, but I just don't know how either team stops the other.
So you think it has a chance to be
A shootout.
haymakers,
Like last
back
year's
and
game.
forth? Yeah.
Minus the turf, which was slip and slide.
Yeah. But think about it. You have star power. You have Mahomes on one side, better or worse, rooting for him or against him. You've got Kelsey. You've got Shanahan and all the toys and the weapons. And what do you got? The Infinity Gauntlet of
The death lineup, as they call it. Yeah.
So, and you've got legacies on the line. I think this could go down as an all-timer.
Now, all-time Super Bowl does require something. It requires more than points. It requires late drama. Last year was epic because of the James Bradbury defensive holding, the late drama, the fumble six, the comeback. I thought last year was an all-time good Super Bowl.
It's funny you say that. I went back and just did 30 years, basically my lifetime.
Okay.
And I put together my top 5 Super Bowls in that span. And I have some honorable mentions, but in the top 5, I put last year's game. And I wondered if you were going to call me out and go, it's recency bias. You can't. You got to let it breathe.
38-35.
2 best teams all year.
Elite QB play.
Shot for shot, both quarterbacks played outstanding.
And big plays.
Yeah.
Shocking plays, including a Kadarius Toney contribution.
The only knock would be a penalty or lack thereof loomed large.
Fair.
Maybe knock it. Anyway, let me just go through my top 5.
Okay.
My number 5, I felt obligatory. Greatest show on turf, wins with defense, a tackle on the 1, Super Bowl 34, the year 2000.
Do you remember the receiver's name who was tackled at the 1, and do you remember who tackled him?
Dyson was tackled?
Kevin Dyson. Do you know where he went to school?
No.
Utah. What linebacker made the tackle?
Dude, I was like 7, 8 years old.
Mike Jones.
Okay. I put it on there because it's a yard shy of what would have been at least an overtime or a 2-point thrilling drama late. And you have this great offense that wins, ironically, with a defensive play at the end. It's Steve McNair on one side. Underrated in the history of football is Steve McNair.
Love it.
So I put that 5th. Number 4 was Super Bowl 57. Last year's Super Bowl, we already touched on it. You had a double-digit comeback by Mahomes on a bum ankle. That's number 4.
Love it.
Number 3. The 2017 Super Bowl, Super Bowl 51, known as 28-3, a comeback that gave us the first overtime in the history of the Super Bowl.
I still can't believe it was real. And I had a friend in New York who, long story, he's a Patriot fan. He had left the bar he was watching it at because they were getting destroyed. Went back to his sad one-bedroom shoebox in the sky. And then, as the comeback begins, gets dressed, runs back down the street, and returns to the bar he was at for overtime. I watched the entire thing on the couch in stunned disbelief at Kyle Shanahan barfing all over himself. I still can't believe that game. Absolutely should be on the list.
Top 3 is where I have it?
I have no problem with it.
Okay, my number 2 involves your team. Super Bowl 42. 2008. The Giants beat the Patriots and ruined their perfect season. David Tyree, Plaxico Burress. That's the second greatest Super Bowl in my lifetime.
I was at Mardi Gras and watched a Super Bowl party in New Orleans that was basically, they cut the room in half. You had Patriot fans and Giant fans, and it was an unbelievable football game. And
Did you think your team could win that game?
No.
Because that's a buzzsaw. That's Brady at his best. Randy Moss.
We played them the last week of the season. It was either Sunday night or Monday Night Football. Patriots were going for 16-0. And the Giants were already going to be in the playoffs, but they had a big players meeting. And we're going to play. Like, we're going to play this game. We are not going to have them come into our house, and we're not going to lay down. It was a shootout. If you look up the finale in that year, it was an absolute war between these two teams. But you got the sense it didn't matter what the Giants did.
Holy shit, 38-35.
Yeah, it was a war. But we were never going to be able to be ahead in that game. We were never going to be able to be better than them. You just couldn't stop them. So the idea that you would face them 5-6 weeks later, and it would be a 17-14 defensive bloodbath, it really came back to the Giants and the 8 guys in that defensive line room tormenting Tom Brady all night long. And then, the David Tyree play, the bubble gum on the helmet play. Yeah, for me, obviously, it holds
That's
a
your
special
number 1,
place.
right?
No, because I love some of your other selections for even more drama. I think it was the idea of upstart Giants who were 7-7 at one point in that season.
You're right.
Against the greatest team ever assembled, and a rematch of this end of season. There was a story there. So no, but I think your number one is actually spot on. And you missed one, which was the Larry Fitzgerald, I didn't know he could run that fast, 80-yard touchdown.
The greatest Super Bowl in my lifetime, and I would argue ever, is the 2009 Super Bowl. Super Bowl 43, Steelers over Cardinals, 27-23. You had James Harrison's pick six, Santonio Holmes game winner. Both teams took the lead in the fourth quarter. None of this, well, they could tie. You had to score to win, and they both did. Steelers get it last.
You had the Harrison pick six.
Yeah.
You had Santonio Holmes with the toe tap. You had Larry Fitzgerald on the 80-yarder.
Yep.
You had the Kurt Warner redemption tour.
Yep.
After he bombed out of New York as Eli's
Arizona
backup.
as a franchise had never
Yes.
been there.
That game, I remember distinctly being at a Super Bowl party, watching that game, and it was just hooting, hollering, and it was a safe space.
Yeah.
Like Lions fans, how do you hate the Steelers or Cards? It doesn't matter. It was awesome.
I was in high school at the time, and it was a bunch of football guys. We're all at one of the guys' houses. It's still one of the best Super Bowl parties I've been to because you're right. The game was good. The food was good. Everybody was having a good time.
Yep. Now, the game that didn't make your list, and I'm not mad about it because you weren't born, but it'll be the number one Super Bowl for me forever.
What is it?
1990.
Oh.
Tampa Bay at the old Sombrero. Whitney Houston singing the national anthem. And it was Giants, Bills, and it was a good Giants team, but it was a great Bills team.
Isn't that the game, like Belichick's game plan is in the Hall of Fame?
Yeah. It was Scott Norwood, wide right. It was the Giants going on like a 12-minute drive, keeping the Bills and Jim Kelly and Andre Reed and Thurman Thomas off the field.
Yep.
Otis Anderson in the latest stages of his career. And it was just this complete battle of styles. The Bills were in the fun and gun, no huddle, zippity-doo-dah all over the place. The Giants, it was kind of the last remnants of the 87 was the strike year, but the Giants were really good in that 5-year frame. And this was kind of like the end of it all. And it was the story of Jeff Hostetler. Phil Simms got hurt like week 13 against the Bills, broke his ankle. You have this mustached backup and Jeff Hostetler from the mountains of West Virginia leading the Giants. And they had gone into San Francisco. The Giants were never supposed to win that game. They were 10-point underdogs against Joe Montana and the Niners. And they kicked 5 field goals to win 15-13. And Roger Craig fumbled late to give the Giants the ball. Nobody really gave the Giants a chance.
It's kind of a theme in all of their Super Bowl runs.
Yeah, and it was just an unbelievable game where you're at the end of it. Now, I got kicked out of the living room early in that game because I was...
She sent you to another room?
Yeah, I was 9. I was criticizing the Giants too much for him. It foreshadowed a radio career to happen. My dad kicked me out of the living room.
This is incredible.
And I was put in the back room. So we grew up in a very small house in upstate New York.
Yeah, you're talking about humble beginnings.
But the back room was it was half the size of this room. It was enough room for a recliner, a small tube TV on a little TV stand, and it had a couple windows. So I got kicked out to the back room.
Solitary confinement.
I was not allowed in. Halftime, I was allowed to come in for snacks, and then I was jettisoned back. He goes, if you're going to complain and you're going to be negative, you're not watching the game with the family. And, of course, I had opinions on first down play calls and the like. What a terrible kid. But for the fourth quarter.
You must have been the worst.
For the fourth quarter, I was allowed back in. And I watched that game sitting on the floor in the living room right next to my father. And then both of us are basically on our knees as Scott Norwood takes the kick.
Yep.
And he misses it. And you know you're winning the Super Bowl. Magical as a 9-year-old kid. So that will always be number one for me. But your selections... I could not possibly argue these.
So the ones that I left out, and we'll just hit them real quick. Again, in the last 30 years, I left out Eagles, Patriots, 1,000 yards of offense, most in Super Bowl history. I left off the Malcolm Butler interception at the very end on the goal line.
Yeah. Now, see, that's a.
I felt bad at that. That's one you could argue should be in the top 5.
If I had to put one on and take one off,
You kick out the greatest show on turf, the 1 yard, or you kick out last year.
I'm thinking.
See, top 5s you can have 5. You can't put 6.
I'm thinking.
That's how they work.
You're right.
Numbers.
You know what it tells you? That we've complained about the Super Bowl a lot. There have been more good Super Bowls than we give credit
Well,
for.
there was a stretch in the early to
90s.
mid 90s that were
Oh,
terrible.
awful.
I did include one from the 90s, 98 in the honorable mentions. This one's for John. Broncos' first Super Bowl. You get Favre, Elway.
Yeah.
No? Okay. I also had Brady Belichick are born, the 2002 Super Bowl. The greatest show on turf falls to the upstarts. And it was, I believe, the second largest upset in Super Bowl history
is.
behind only the Namath game.
It is. And look, that from a historical importance, man, did that start
Everything
the greatest
in
dynasty
motion.
we had ever seen.
Yeah.
Jim, that's why top 10s are created. I think you've encapsulated outside of the 1990, you've encapsulated the 10 right
Yeah, right
selections.
around 10. Yeah.
Really nice job.
And
on
do you
that.
think this has a chance to be a top 10 Super Bowl?
I do, based on, first of all, you get Patrick Mahomes. You get a storyline, which is Brock Purdy, Mahomes. Couldn't be more different.
Mr. Irrelevant.
You get the two best teams. You get really the chance for offensive fireworks, which I think is important.
They are, if you're a football nerd, two of the most fun, creative offenses. Don't do it the same way,
Right.
but very creative offenses.
Backdrop of Taylor Swift.
Yep.
Backdrop of Las Vegas.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's got the potential.
So 48-3 and it's a
Yeah,
dud.
it's
But no,
snoozer.
I do think it has potential. Yes.